Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something that, is absolutely foundational to economic growth, but rarely gets the spotlight it deserves. We're talking about high-stakes infrastructure bets.
Exactly.
We're diving into a really significant investment in upstate New York, specifically in Fulton County, and we're going to look at how a targeted grant is being used not just to build, but to strategically, enable industrial growth.
Right. It's the enabling that's the key part.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've got a couple of sources here, and they're all focused on this $8.9 million Fast NY grant and the incredible transformation happening at what is now the Tryon Technology Park.
hmm
So our mission for this deep dive is to analyze this material and figure out exactly what this, significant investment actually purchased. And more importantly, we really need to understand why companies are being told that at Tryon, infrastructure uncertainty is taken off the table.
And, that phrase right there, infrastructure uncertainty is taken off the table. That is probably the best sales pitch you can have in economic development today.
It's a bold claim.
It's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it from the company's perspective. If you're a major corporation looking to spend, say, hundreds of millions on a new facility, your two biggest enemies are always time and risk. Always.
Right.
So if you have to spend, 18 months just proving you can get enough water or figuring out your wastewater, you're already calculating massive carrying costs. This Tryon investment is all about eliminating that one critical, painful step. It makes the site immediately competitive.
That makes perfect sense, that focus on speed and certainty. But before we get into the engineering of it all, we really have to talk about the origin story here.
Oh, yeah. It's not your typical industrial park.
Not at all. To really get the scale of this adaptive reuse project, we have to start with what the Tryon Technology Park site was before. And our sources say this entire 220-acre parcel in Perth, it was a former New York State juvenile correctional facility.
Which is just a profound example of adaptive reuse. I mean, it completely flicks the script on what you do with a big, underutilized public asset.
It really does.
You had this huge piece of state-owned land, previously correctional, just sitting there dormant, and now it's being entirely repurposed to drive industrial growth. That shift alone, I mean, from detention to development, it's remarkable.
And the thing fueling that transformation is the money. This whole project was anchored by that very sizable $8.99 million Fast NY grant. So who actually got that fund and how is it meant to be used?
So the grant went directly to the Fulton County Industrial Development Agency, the FCDA.
The FC, okay.
And this wasn't just, general state money. It was very specifically allocated to them with really clear mission. Prepare this site for the highest capacity industrial use you can possibly imagine, which leads us right into the specifics.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me because the sources are so clear that this money, this nearly $9 million, it wasn't for, cosmetic upgrades.
No, not ever.
It was targeted surgery on the utilities, the stuff that stops a project cold. We see three major categories of work. First, huge upgrades to the water pump station and the mains. Second, upgrades to the wastewater pumps and the force mains. And then finally, just major demolition and earthwork to clear out the old stuff and get the site ready for massive building pads.
And that list, it might sound a bit technical to some people, but every single item on it addresses a known bottleneck for big industry. Take wastewater force mains. For you, the listener, a force main isn't just a simple pipe that uses gravity. It's a pressurized line. So if you're running, say, a massive food processing plant, you're generating enormous amounts of wastewater that have to be actively pumped. By upgrading these heavy-duty components, the FCIDA basically proved they could handle the absolute highest industrial demands from day one.
So the adaptive reuse here isn't just about, changing the sign out front.
Not even close.
It's about engineering a former prison site to handle the intense water flow and waste that you'd see at a Biotech campus or a huge modern factory.
Exactly. It's unlocking the value that was already there through very calculated engineering. It's looking at those 220 acres and asking, what is the highest and best economic use? And what's the smallest, most strategic investment we can make to unlock it? And the answer was, fix the utilities.
And the potential they unlocked is, it's staggering. This is where we need to talk about scale. That 220-acre site isn't being prepped for a small office park.
No.
They're getting it ready for up to 4 massive buildings, ranging from 150,000 square feet up to a colossal 1.3 million square feet in a single building.
1.3 million square feet. I mean, that is just hard to even visualize. For context, that's roughly the size of 28 football fields.
Wow.
And when a developer's looking at a project on that kind of scale, the cost of delays, the money spent on financing, on planning, before you even break ground, it's astronomical.
Which is why that intense focus on water and wastewater is, well, it's the strategic stroke of genius here. It's what turns that raw land into buildable potential.
It is the core strategic advantage they're marketing. It truly is. Most big projects get bogged down because the local town or city has to spend years upgrading their systems to support the new capacity.
Right, the classic problem.
But here, that $8.99 million investment pre-solved that problem. It guarantees that any operation with a heavy utility load can just hit the ground running.
And that abundance in capacity is gold. So, for the listener, why is this certainty so critical for these specific huge tenants?
Well, it's the difference between a 5-year timeline and, say, a 2-year timeline. I mean, if you're a company building a $300 million facility, cutting your development time by 3 years, that's tens of millions of dollars saved. Not to mention you get your product to market faster.
Of course.
And the sources give specific examples of who needs this guarantee.
Yeah.
Cold storage, sophisticated biotech labs, or highly automated production facilities. For all of them, utilities are the literal foundation of their entire operation.
So that infrastructure certainty doesn't just reduce risk, like the sources say. It fundamentally compresses timelines.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's a proactive approach. Spend millions now to save tenants, tens of millions later. That's the entire pitch.
And it seems entirely strategic. It's not just solving the current problem. It's future-proofing the site for the exact industries they want to attract.
Right. Which raises the next logical question. Since they invested so heavily in water and waste capacity, which industries are they actually targeting with this very specialized prep work?
Well, the FCIDA has made that crystal clear. They are not trying to be all things to all industries.
The smart move.
Very. They are aiming squarely for 4 specific high-growth sectors that need the exact intense water and wastewater capacity they just paid for.
And those are?
Okay, so the 4 are, first, agribusiness, second, food processing, third, life sciences, and fourth, advanced manufacturing.
And if you connect that back to the bigger picture, I mean, those 4 industries are just perfectly aligned with the infrastructure they built.
Exactly.
Think about food processing. It needs just massive volumes of water for washing, for cooling, for steam.
Yeah.
And it generates so much wastewater that has to be managed. Same for life sciences and biotech. They need ultra-pure water and have highly regulated waste disposal. By solving that core utility problem first, Fulton County is just maximizing the site's appeal to these very high-impact sectors.
So that $8.99 million wasn't just, arbitrary spending. It was an economic weapon, surgically applied.
Absolutely. They tailor the infrastructure to maximize the site's appeal to industries where your ability to scale up depends entirely on having immediate, reliable capacity. It's a huge differentiator.
So we've established the physical readiness. You've got 220 acres, it's cleared, the capacity is guaranteed, it can handle a 1.3 million square foot building. But even the best site can get stalled by bureaucracy.
Oh, absolutely. Red tape can kill any project.
Which brings us to the support system the FCIDA offers. The sources repeatedly mention the speed and professionalism of this non-physical infrastructure.
And that governmental support system is arguably just as critical as the pikes in the ground. If a developer secures the land but then gets stuck in permitting for 2 years, that initial advantage just evaporates.
So the FCIDA offers what they call the fast track to growth.
Right, which is basically their promise of a simplified, streamlined bureaucratic process.
And what does that fast track actually look like? What support is available?
Well, there are 4 key components that all work together. First, you get access to already prepared, shovel-ready sites. Not just Tryon, but also the Johnstown Industrial Park.
Okay.
Second, and this is huge, they offer crucial tax incentives. The sources specifically call out pilot programs, plus sales and mortgage tax exemptions.
We should probably pause on pilots because that's key jargon. What does a pilot program actually do for a massive developer?
A pilot, or a payment in lieu of taxes, is an agreement that basically replaces a standard annual property tax bill with a fixed negotiated fee over a set period, often 10, maybe 15 years.
So it's about predictability.
Total predictability.
Yeah.
For a massive construction project, this tells the developer exactly what their tax burden will be for the long term.
Yeah.
It minimizes financial risk, helps them secure funding. It's a huge, huge incentive for these big companies.
That predictability is key. You also mentioned speed, which is non-negotiable here. How does the FCEDI actually quantify that promise of speed?
And that's the third piece of the toolkit. They boast 60 to 90-day approval timelines.
60 to 90 days.
60 to 90, which is incredibly aggressive. It's specifically designed to cut out months, maybe even years, of typical government red tape.
That is almost unheard of for a facility that could be over 1 million square feet. That promise really shows they're trying to be a partner, not an obstacle.
And the fourth component just closes the loop. They have a heavy focus on workforce development partnerships with local colleges and training institutions.
Right, you need the people.
Of course. It's not enough to offer the land and the permits. The company needs to know that the specialized labor for, say, advanced manufacturing or life sciences is actually available locally. The FPIDEC connects them directly to those training pipelines.
So when you look at the total package, what does it all mean? It's not just one grant or one site. It's a whole environment they've created.
It really is. The FCID isn't just selling land. They are selling a complete solution that includes the financial incentives, the governmental speed, and a trained workforce ready to go.
It's the trifecta.
The ultimate trifecta.
Yeah.
Certainty on the ground with the infrastructure, certainty in the timeline with the fast approvals, and certainty in the financials with the tax incentives. It's the entire ecosystem designed to attract those global site selectors who demand a de-risked expansion.
That's a fantastic synthesis. So let's briefly recap the strategic framework behind this Tryon revitalization for you, the listener. It's a fascinating and really focused example of how you can use state funding strategically, and it's built on 4 pillars. First, you have adaptive reuse. They took a former state correctional facility and turned it into this dynamic industrial campus.
Then second, you have capacity and certainty. That nearly $9 million grant was hyper-focused on utilities, guaranteeing abundant water and wastewater for facilities up to 1.3 million square feet. They solved the biggest bottleneck first.
Third, targeted industry attraction. I mean, they tailored every single upgrade to meet the specific heavy needs of food processing, life sciences, and advanced manufacturing.
And fourth, speed and support. And that's all backed by the FCIDA's Fast Track Toolkit, with those critical pilot tax incentives and the highly aggressive 60 to 90-day approval timelines to minimize risk for the developer.
So this project really serves as a clear model for how state funding, like that Fast NY grant, can be used not just to throw money at a problem, but to surgically unlock the highest possible economic value in an underutilized asset.
The efficiency and the targeting are what's so impressive here. It's a proactive strategy. And the state is investing to solve problems that would otherwise stop private capital from even looking at the site.
And that strategic focus is what you, the listener, need to carry forward when you analyze other development projects. The money wasn't for generalities. It was spent to enable specific, massive industrial throughput.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. The entire strategy here, it all hinges on attracting businesses that require these heavy utility loads, especially water and wastewater. And they are preparing the site for up to 1.3 million square feet of this kind of activity. So given that this growth is so focused on intensive use, I mean, think of the constant flow required by multiple large-scale food processing or biotech plants. What long-term pressures might this type of focused industrial growth place on the local municipal infrastructure and the surrounding environment, outside of the park's immediate upgrades?
That's a powerful question. It's about the regional impact of such rapid, massive, and specialized growth. It really highlights that inherent trade-off you see in attracting industry. Solving one big problem can sometimes create new, unforeseen ones down the line. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into infrastructure bets and economic readiness. We'll see you next time.